Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to explain some of the new legal action that the EU is taking against the UK over the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, which has just cleared the House of Commons stages. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, Northern Ireland Protocol Bill is a piece of legislation that Liz Truss and Boris Johnson are pushing through Parliament, which is intended to allow government ministers the domestic legal right to disapply any and all aspects of the Northern Ireland Protocol as they see fit. Now, I've discussed this before, along with my doubts that it will clear the House of Lords. It's frankly ridiculous that no Tory MPs opposed it, but there is a chance that the Lords will. I'd like to think it's a big chance. Not only does this bill break a key general election campaign promise, which was to implement the withdrawal agreement, including the Northern Ireland Protocol. So, as I see it, the government have no mandate to force this legislation through, and the Lords are under no obligations to accept it. This bill, if passed, would breach a major international treaty, and not one that was signed a long time ago by a government long since past, but this very same government not much more than 2 years ago. It would also breach the Good Friday Agreement because the specific use for this bill would be to disapply the role of the European Court of Justice in Northern Ireland. But this is a key part of the Good Friday Agreement as well as the Northern Ireland Protocol. You know, the House of Lords can absolutely throw this bill in the bin and leave the government with no option but to either drop it or ram it through using the Parliament Act later on. However, I don't know that this would happen. Politics is highly volatile right now. So the threat exists that this bill becomes law and the EU are not waiting around to find out. As soon as the bill cleared its third reading in the House of Commons this week, which was sooner than anticipated, the EU launched a further 4 infringement proceedings against the UK. Now, first of all, I'll point out a couple of things that occurred to me. The infringement proceedings were issued as soon as this bill cleared its third reading. People were not expecting it to clear its third reading just yet. That means the EU were prepared for this eventuality in advance. That also suggests that they are prepared or are preparing for future phases as well. In other words, the EU are ready to act fairly quickly as and when different things happen. But before I go over what the infringement proceedings are, I do want to say this first as well. The Brexit media often try to say that this action is justified because it's the EU who have not been holding up their end of the bargain. This is objectively untrue. Not one single supporter of this madness is able to point to a single action or inaction from the EU that is in breach of any agreement. It's entirely the UK government breaching this agreement. This is not about taking sides in a partisan contest for ideals. This is about simple legal rights and wrongs. It's the same in the comments from the small number of people who will parrot what they read in the Daily Express. It's actually the EU, I think you'll find, who've been not complying with the agreement. You name me a single thing the EU have done or not done to breach any agreement. You never get an answer to that. So what are the new infringements? So the first is failing to comply with customs requirements. Essentially, we have not been ensuring that unlawful goods do not end up passing into the Republic of Ireland, which of course is part of the EU. It's been known for some time that Northern Ireland represents a pretty huge hole for smugglers to operate through. The EU did not make a huge fuss for a while in the interest of working constructively with the UK to get a more permanent, practical implementation of the protocol in place. But it was not a situation that could carry on forever. The single market is vital to the success of the EU and the integrity of its borders has to be maintained. I know Brexiteers like to talk about the integrity of borders all the time, so they should have no issue with this. It's worth pointing out that when Michael Gove was handling the protocol, he agreed that the government would provide certain information like shipping manifests and so on to allow for goods to be tracked, but with a relatively light touch on physical checks. But the UK government have reneged on this promise. So this first infringement notice is the EU basically saying, look, you agreed to do this. Can you do it, please? The second, third and fourth infringements are technical issues over the collection of excise duties and VAT, as far as I can see. I've talked in the past about how our failure to set up customs checks at the border between Britain and the EU, for example, Britain and France, because of that, we're losing out on lots of import tax revenues. Because smugglers are having it too easy. They just say, oh, yeah, they say what's in the box, but it's not really what's in the box. And because no one's checking it, the box gets through. You end up paying very little, if any, import taxes when you actually should be paying a great deal, and we're losing out. That hurts us. But it's no big deal for the EU if we want to allow in any, if we want to allow in a box that's marked teddy bears when it's actually got, I don't know, whiskey in it or something. That's our affair, not theirs. But we're also failing to apply similar procedures in Northern Ireland. Essentially, by leaving the single market and customs union, we have raised standards and customs borders between ourselves and the EU. The borders need to be managed. And there are two sides to a border. Like between Britain and France, for example, straightforward. We manage the border for goods and people coming into Britain from France, and France does the same for goods and people passing from Britain into France. If one side wants to make a mess of things, that's up to them. They're the one who suffers. But where Northern Ireland is concerned, what we did is to put a border between Britain and Northern Ireland, because it can't go between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. But this means that the border is entirely within the UK, and the UK is therefore managing both sides of that border. Now, if we want to mess up our side, fine. But we are in a position to mess up their side as well. The EU are not cool with that. And I've said before, they must have been absolutely mad to agree to let Boris Johnson manage their side of a trade border. But it was what it was. On the announcement, David Frost, the man who negotiated the protocol, said that those who still think that the European Court of Justice's role in Northern Ireland is just theoretical or ideological may want to think again. As if the agreement was always that the European Court of Justice would have a theoretical role and not a practical role. So, no, that was never part of the deal. The Northern Ireland Protocol, which he negotiated personally, expressively gives several roles to that court. He, of all people, cannot claim to have misunderstood it. There are no end of gobshites who have no excuse, but may not actually know what Brexit is. Like Ian Duncan Smith, for example, backbench Tory MP member of the ERG. He whines about the protocol, but he may not actually have read or understood it. Not that it's an excuse, because when other MPs were complaining that the withdrawal bill was being passed too quickly through Parliament, and there hadn't been time to properly scrutinise it, Duncan Smith was the one telling him to shut up. We've had long enough to read it. We've had plenty of time to read it, he said. Then, a year or so later, he changed his tune to, I didn't realise it had that in it. I didn't have enough time to read it at the time. It went through too quickly, you know. But he could claim to have not understood it. Boris Johnson has fewer excuses. He was consulted at every step of the way, but he also probably didn't read or fully understand it. Indeed, Dominic Cummings has since claimed that Boris Johnson was largely kept in the dark through most of the negotiations and bounced into things that he wasn't really expecting. Not that this is an excuse for him either, because not only could he have chosen to read things properly, but when he had questions, he did get them answered by officials. No officials kept him in the dark. Dominic Cummings might have done. Officials did not. He also knew exactly what the protocol meant when he promoted it to the nation. But David Frost is the one politician in the UK who has definitely read and understood every single word of the agreement. He negotiated and agreed every line personally. He was in charge. Every single letter he understood. Of course, these infringement procedures are not the most serious consequences for this bill. Frankly, most ordinary people will not even know this process is going on, nor will they see the impact. What people will notice is the end of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. This is the inevitable later consequence for the nutters in government persisting with this dangerous policy. Not that the government want to push this policy. They think it's just diplomatic leverage. They think it'll force the EU to give in to certain demands. They will eventually learn that it's having the opposite effect. The danger has always been with Brexit that we end up with a harder form than anyone really wants, even the hard Brexiteers, by accident, because of a spectacular miscalculation born of the fact that they're not listening to experts, because the experts are all doomsayers who say Brexit's a shit idea. Even Truss, though, knows that we cannot afford to be without the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Boris Johnson understood it, Rishi Sunak understood it. There's no way of having a Prime Minister now or later that doesn't understand that. It's just that Liz Truss is buying into the nonsense that the EU will eventually back down to political terrorism, Rishi Sunak less so. The question is not whether or not she's prepared to get involved with a trade war with the EU. She is absolutely not. The question is whether or not she recognises where the tipping point is, because her aim is to push the EU so far. But if she doesn't understand where that tipping point is, she could accidentally trigger this trade war due to a lack of perception. And I do worry about how this issue will interact with other aspects of politics as well. Because whether it's Truss or Sunak who becomes the next Prime Minister, as this bill reaches its final stage in Parliament, which you would have thought would be sometime next year, but, you know, as it's going through a lot quicker than we might have anticipated, it may be this year. And assuming it does get passed, because I don't know that it will, but assuming it does, it will be at a time when people are feeling the pain of Brexit more intensely. The cost of living crisis will be worse. The shortages will be worse. There'll be no let up with whatever policies Sunak or Truss put in place. The government will be absolutely desperate for a distraction from that. My worry is that they lose all sense of perspective and see this bill as such a distraction. They will be quite wrong, of course. People throughout most of Britain don't know this is even happening. They neither know nor care about the issues with the protocol. They don't. They care that they don't have the workers to run their business, or easy access to customers to buy their products, or the money to pay their bills. They care about those things. So I fear there'll be no tidy end to this. I'd like to think that this protocol bill is just a massive bluff, and everyone's aware it's a massive bluff, and that when it's seen to have failed, it'll be quietly dropped. But I do worry that they're going to trap themselves with it and feel that it's politically better to go ahead than withdraw. Certainly the ERG want to corner the next Prime Minister like this, like they were cornering Boris Johnson. Time will tell. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.